about that. So let's get going with the topic tonight. And I think this is going to be an interesting one for you. I had a lot of people reach out to say, I can't be on the call. Can you tell me what the number one reason most people don't succeed in life is? What is it? What is it? And, you might have guesses of your own. Sometimes it surprises people what it is, because we can all go through a wild array and say, well, I think it's because of this. I think it's because of that. And certainly we could say, well, it's because of lack of effort. Well, that's a no-brainer. If we don't get out of bed and we don't work and we don't do anything, we certainly can't see success, right? And sometimes people will say, well, it's lack of knowledge. I mean, we don't know what to do or where to go or how to go. And so that's why we don't see success. Some people might say that it's fear. They're afraid to do anything. Some might say it's their self-image or their lack of self-esteem or whatever you want to call that. And some people might actually blame the lack of resources. There are a lot of things that we could say and reasons we could come up with for the reason most people don't see success. But see, I didn't just say success in business, did I? I said success in life. And there's one thing, it's driven by many other factors, but there's one thing that's a deal breaker and that can sabotage every area of your life, and that's procrastination. And there was a poll. Psychology Today actually put out an article that said they polled people in there. 20% of America admits to being chronic procrastinators, okay? It's not just a little bit like, oh, I forgot to take the car and get the oil change. These are chronic procrastinators, but I'd venture to guess they didn't poll enough people, because I think more people are chronic procrastinators than you would think. And you know what? There's a lot behind procrastination. It's not as simple as it may appear on the surface. Procrastination is actually defined as to put off intentionally and habitually. Isn't that amazing when you think about it? Like, you might think about yourself procrastinating, but do you actually think about, I intentionally put that off and I habitually put that off? Let me tell you something, guys. You procrastinate in areas of your life. It doesn't really matter what area of your life we're talking about. If you procrastinate in your relationships, if there's something there that needs to be dealt with, or some action you need to take and you refuse to take it, you put it off intentionally and habitually, how do you think that relationship's going to be? If you put off, you procrastinate with your children, if you see an opportunity that needs correction or a great moment to give a spiritual message or whatever those things are, you put your kids on the back burner, and rest assured you're not end up well at the end of the day. You are putting them off intentionally and habitually. And rest assured, if you put things off intentionally and habitually in your business, there's not a snowball's chance you can succeed. So it strikes every area of our life. It even strikes your faith. If I put off, time reading my Bible and spending the time to nourish myself and doing the things that I need to do to be the kind of woman I want to be and the kind of woman God wants me to be, what am I going to have at the end of the day? We cannot see success in any area of our lives, from our relationships to our children, to our faith, to our business, if we don't deal with procrastination. It strikes every single area of life. And it's self-sabotage. Think about it. If you intentionally, you habitually do it, you're self-sabotaging yourself. We stay in self-sabotage mode. We got to figure that out. It's not as simple as just, being lazy and not doing something. There's something behind it if we are habitually and intentionally putting things off that we need to do to have a fulfilling life. So why are we in self-sabotage mode? The end result is always the same. You procrastination, a lot of things that lead up to it. We procrastinate, and therefore we don't take the effort. So you might say, well, I'm not succeeding because I'm not putting forth the effort, which is true, right? But you're not putting it forth because you're procrastinating. We procrastinate because we convince ourselves that we haven't learned enough. How many times have you heard that? Well, I haven't mastered a demo yet. Well, I don't know what to say. I don't have my elevator speech. We procrastinate because we've convinced ourselves that we haven't learned enough yet. We procrastinate because we're afraid. Boy, I tell you, I taught a class on fear. I'm about to roll it out again because fear kills all deals. But we can procrastinate because we're afraid. Some of us procrastinate because we're lazy, but that laziness is really self-centered. It's because of that habitual and intentional, refusal to do what we need to do. That's very self-centered when you look at it that way. We procrastinate because we don't think we're ready yet. My team will probably roll their eyes as they hear this tonight when I say, stop getting ready to get ready to do something. Just do something. How much getting ready do we need to do? I've often said to people with children, I'm getting ready to have my my third granddaughter coming into this life, and I say, if anybody ever really thought about it, you'd never be ready to have children. God just works that out. You'd never have enough time, or you'd never have the good enough job, or you'd never have enough money. Those things would never come. So you can't procrastinate just because you don't think you're ready. I don't care what it is in life. We procrastinate because we convince ourselves that we need just one more thing or a little bit more time, right? Procrastination is self-sabotage. So why are you sabotaging your success in life, in every area of your life or any area of your life? Why are you doing that? There's a whole lot more behind it, like I said, than just thinking about not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Well, I got news for you. There are a lot of people out there, it's almost like they strut around like a banty rooster when they say, I'm a procrastinator, works for me, I do my best work at the 11th hour when I'm under pressure, and guess what, folks? You don't. You only get the job done because you have completely exhausted all time and all resources, only for those things that you absolutely have to do. Case in point, some people put off their taxes. It comes the same time every year. It's coming. It's always going to come on the same day. There's no confusion, right? It's coming the same time every year. And yet, how many people do you know that on that night, on April 14th, they'll be up sweating bullets trying to do what they had all that time to do? You weren't born a procrastinator. It's learned behavior. And it's driven more often than not by fear, or it's driven by some sort of life experience. Now, I talk about that kind of thing a lot, and it's not about the blame game. It's my mother and father's fault I turned out. There's nothing like that. But everything you ever heard, everything you've ever seen is on the hard drive of your mind. And so much of our behavior comes forth from things that we've experienced in life. So you weren't born a procrastinator. Something or some experience, something happened along the way that helped you develop that behavior of being willing to intentionally and habitually put off the things that need to be dealt with in your life. When you keep thinking about it that way, it's very convicting. So you need to first take a look inside of you. Maybe you had with your parents, maybe you had very harsh consequences for your behavior. Maybe it was just a lash. I'll tell you, I had a mother with a temper, and she was a wonderful woman in many ways, but when she was, off with her temper, you would hear anything flinging around, and very, abusive things. You had things thrown at you. It was crazy. There were consequences for behavior. There were consequences for breathing sometimes, but I didn't like it. You know what that did to me? That made me not like conflict. And so, for many years of my life, how can you have fulfilling relationships or even a successful business if you run from conflict? But I ran from conflict until I learned to deal with it. So it could be some consequence of your behavior as a child, where maybe you heard, you know what, you can't do anything right. I trusted you to do this. You screwed it up again. You're never going to get it right. You're never going to amount to anything. Maybe you heard that kind of thing. And so it might be that it's less painful for you to do nothing because you might hear that. Now, guys, I want to stop right there and just say that coming to the bottom of things as we work on our own lives and we evaluate our own behavior. In this case, we say, okay, I procrastinate. I know it's intentional. I know it's habitual. What's behind it? I want you to know that you can get behind all the stuff. It's not about digging through the cobwebs of all the things that you may have endured in your life, but you do need to understand there's something behind being a procrastinator. You were not born that way. Maybe you had somebody that just rode you and rode you and rode you and criticized your every single move. How did you make your bed and where did you put your cup? I mean, maybe it was just so OCD with criticism that now you rebel. And ain't nobody going to tell you what to do. You refuse to be under any deadline. You refuse to cooperate with the deadline. You run from anything that looks like an order or an instruction to you. Maybe you're just rebelling, but there's something. Rest assured, if you're procrastinating, there's something behind it. And chances are that most people on this call, when we open up the lines, will probably hear, most people procrastinate at some level or another. Procrastination is the end result. Again, we procrastinate for so many reasons. So again, some of that's from personal pain. Some of it's from rebellion. Lots and lots of it is, from fear. But whatever is behind the procrastination, it can always be dealt with. I hear it all the time, and it's easy to be on that side of the line, or to hear me speak or to meet me or whatever, and paint this picture. You've got this, self-confident, been a successful businesswoman, that's all you see. But what you don't know, many of you, is that as a child, because of our lifestyle, many things, I was paralyzed with fear. I could not even speak up. When I open the lines up, there's not a snowball's chance I would ever say a word until I had to deal with that fear. And you know what made me deal with the fear? Wasn't that I evaluated myself one day very rationally and said, I got to deal with it. It's that I hit a roadblock in my career. And unless I could deal with that fear, I was finished. And so I dealt with the fear. Whatever lies behind your procrastination, it can always be dealt with. It's just a matter of whether you're willing to deal with it. And sometimes you got to deal with a little pain, and sometimes it's not fun to look at yourself. I do that often. I don't like it, okay? But how am I ever going to be better unless I'm willing to do that? Procrastination is death to relationships, to your children, with your parenting, to your business, to your joy, to your faith. Procrastination is death to all those things. So we really, that's the end result. We really can't afford to not deal with whatever is behind procrastination, right? So we got to figure out what's going on. Self-sabotage, procrastination is self-sabotage. So self-sabotage is when one part of your personality acts in conflict with the other part. So in other words, part of you wants to do something, but the other part's fighting you. Sounds like Jekyll and Hyde, right? But to break that down, let's just say, everybody on this call, you're making an effort to be on this call, then more than likely you want to succeed in this business. You're taking steps to plug in and to figure out if there's anything that you can learn. And so there's a part of you that's saying, I want to succeed in this business. And yet there's a conflict going on. You're procrastinating. So, what's going on? The goal is to recognize your self-sabotaging behaviors. That's the biggest goal, for what we're talking about tonight, and then to do something about it. But there's a conflict in your personality. And again, this is a psychology 101. I don't even embrace all that stuff necessarily, but there's something going on inside of you. And until you can figure out what that is, you can't find your trigger point. Why am I intentionally and habitually putting off things that I need to do to have a successful, fulfilling life? And so we've got to look at that and then do something about it. And there's something that can be done about all of it. Procrastination, is considered by many to be just a lifestyle. People will say, that's just the way I am. I just put things off, But again, if it spills over into every area of your life, can you really afford the luxury of lying to yourself just to say, that's just the way I am, and accept that as, that's all that's necessary? They don't do things in a timely fashion. Procrastinators, for instance, are the ones that say, oh man, I didn't get my airline tickets to Global. I had all these months to do it. Now I'm going to pay out the yin-yang for it because I didn't do it. Procrastinators are the ones, those gift certificate people, oh, they love procrastinators, because you'll get a gift certificate and pretty soon you don't even know where it is, right? So the majority of gift certificates are never even used. Stores sell them, you give it as gift, and most of the time they're not even used because procrastinators don't get around to it. Well, I didn't get around to it. Well, I didn't go there. Well, I forgot to bring my card there. They just put everything else. The procrastinators, they shop on Christmas Eve. See, procrastination, it goes into every area of your life. It becomes a lifestyle when you start accepting that's the way you are. Procrastinators will choose to be a procrastinator, and they can't be successful because of it. And let me tell you, you're successful, again, in any area of your life. I'm sure that you could think back at some point in your life, in your marriage or in a relationship, where you can think about how you procrastinated and you drove the other one crazy, right? Procrastination will spill over into every area. You cannot be successful unless you deal with it. It is not your lifestyle. It is not just the way you are. Again, think about the definition. It's intentionally and habitually putting things off that need to be done. That's not a lifestyle. That's a choice. And so you got to figure out, why are you making that choice, or by default, why are you taking that action? It's interesting. I read in Psychology Today that there are more procrastination is higher and a bigger problem in the USA than anywhere else in the world. Isn't that fascinating? I mean, you think, wow, here we are, the land of the brave and the home of the free, and it's like, wow, why would it be that way? Well, they say it's because we're too politically correct and we're too nice. So in other words, people, go about procrastinating everything, and we don't call them on it. We don't call people on those excuses when they drop the ball. Rest assured, when I tell people in my spiritual life, in my personal life, in my business life, if I tell somebody, hey, hold me accountable, I'm expecting you to do it, okay? If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm actually expecting you to say something if I don't. But, most people don't want that. They don't want the accountability, and they certainly don't want to be bothered. They just, they don't call people on excuses. It's just the way it is. And even when we don't believe the excuse we get, we just even let it go. If you doubt that, look inside of our school systems. I mean, my kids have been out of school a while. I've got grown children. My baby is 27. My oldest is 33, and the third grandchild. So it's been a while for me. But I can tell you, I still remember, you'd have Johnny do something. Let's say Johnny didn't bring in his homework, or he didn't meet deadline for a quiz, or didn't do his book report, whatever. And you know what happens? The parents go in there and they fight like junkyard dogs on behalf of Johnny to say it's not Johnny's fault and you need to give Johnny a break and whatever. See, there aren't any consequences. And I think that's why it's probably more predominant in the U.S. than anywhere else in the world. There aren't any consequences. There needs to be accountability. So if you're inclined to procrastinate, boy, you got a free run. And not only that, but you work for yourself. And see, when we work for ourselves, we have to deliberately go out and find accountability, be part of a team, be a part of a group, plug in with other people, because you know what? Nobody's going to hold you accountable. It's not like a job. Nobody's going to hold you accountable. And so if you're inclined to do that, you got free reign, but rest assured, my friend, you will not see success. So, if you're inclined to be a procrastinator, it's more important than ever when you're working for yourself to get a handle on it. So, it's not a matter of organization. It'd be so simple to say, well, procrastinators, and they're just disorganized, It's not as simple as getting organized or making lists, because remember, there's something back there triggering them to intentionally and habitually not do what they're supposed to do. What is it? Is it that childhood thing? I'm never going to get it right. Is it I'm never going to amount to anything? Is it just I don't want somebody bossing me around? What is it? It's not as simple as just getting organized or making lists. Telling a chronic procrastinator just to get organized is like telling somebody depression to get over it. I mean, it's just not that simple. It's a learned behavior that has to be broken. Procrastinators often are unrealistically optimistic. I'll be okay. I can do my taxes. No problem. It's not going to be complicated at all. I can get it done in a couple hours. They're unrealistically optimistic. Or in our world, it might be, oh, that's okay. I can make 6A because I can go out the first 100 people I talk to, or 100 going to invest in our technology. They're unrealistically optimistic. They often don't have a true picture or even really true deadlines, right? So they're dealing kind of in this fog through their procrastination. So it's not as simple as saying, you need to suck it up and make a list, right? It's not a minor problem. It's not as simple as keeping account. It's a very deep-rooted, learned behavior. It's a habitual behavior. It's self-sabotaging behavior, and it's death to your business, okay? So it's not as simple as that, as a matter of being organized. Again, fear. We could talk every week for years about fear, because fear just controls so much, But, the fear of, if I don't do anything, I can't do it wrong, is probably the biggest area of fear for people in our business. If I don't pick up the phone, I can't say the wrong thing. And if I don't go to that prospecting group, or that networking group, I can't mess it up. And if I never stand up to give my elevator speech, I can never do it wrong. So it's that fear. If I don't do anything, I can't do it wrong. But instead of admitting that fear is behind it, we put it off with excuses. Well, I don't know my elevator speech well enough yet. Well, I don't know what to say if I go to a networking group. Well, I don't know what to say when I pick up the phone. Well, I don't know what to say when I do. It's all those excuses always come down to fear, and the end result is always going to be procrastination. Bear with me 1 second, folks. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So we don't work the business. In other words, again, we put it off. So many people, we're not seeing success. I've been there, actually, by the way, folks, where we don't see success because we're putting it off. We're not willing to show up. We don't show up to calls. We don't show up to events. We don't show up to global. We don't show up for a demo. We don't show up at all. We put it off, don't we? We don't show up. Well, I've seen a demo before, right? What am I going to learn if I go? We just don't go. We don't show up. Bigger than that, this follow-up. The fortune is always in the follow-up. But I bet you could turn around and talk to yourself and the people around you about just things that happened in this last week, and somebody, if not everybody, would say, you know what, I meant to call them back. You know, I forgot to give them a call. You know, I was supposed to call them yesterday. We don't follow up. You know, that phone gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And sometimes people think, well, you know, I do a lot of phone calling, by the way, so they'll think, well, it's easy for you. No, it's not easy for me. It's like the first part of the day when you're getting ready to do cold calls, the first time I pick up the receiver, it weighs 500 pounds, okay? Once you do it and you get used to it, it gets a little easier, you know, on each new day. But it's heavy, it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And so you could easily make excuses, right? So we make excuses about our schedule and their schedule. Well, you know, I'm trying to get together with them, but it's really hard because I have church on Wednesday nights and they have kids on Thursday. You know, we'll make all kinds of excuses. Guys, there's 24 hours in a day. So when next time you're doing that, you think about, are you habitually and intentionally putting off things that need to be done? Because we've got an excuse for everything. And in reality, all that it really is we're in self-sabotage mode, and you really haven't, that hasn't connected in your mind yet. You're self-sabotaging your business. We cannot succeed if we surrender to procrastination. It's not possible. You know, we got to change our behavior. Again, everything can be dealt with. There's nothing that you deal with, I don't care what it is, that can't be dealt with. There's nothing that can't be overcome. You know, sometimes people say, when they hear the full story of my fear, they're like, oh, wow, well, how'd you get over it? I didn't get over it. I've learned to deal with it. I manage it. You know, if you ever see me, like, if I'm going to speak at an event or something, I'll go off by myself. Every auction, I did 5,000 properties in my auction career. Every time I had to go off by myself and have a little talking to myself to get myself prepared to fight through that fear. Everything can be worked on, right? But we got to change our behavior. You know, do you have the desire to change? I can't answer that. It's entirely up to you. All I can do is deal with me and try to be as transparent with me so that I can be as successful as I can be. But do you want to move past it? You know, some of you might be rolling your eyes. Maybe some people already hung up, saying this is nonsense. You know, this is all psychological stuff. But do you want to move past it? Do you want to be a better you? You know, because I love to hear Romy's story. Romy talks about, you know, he was in this industry. I've never been in this industry before, but he was in all kinds of stuff, like so many people have been, you know. And he says that everything he ever did before was just preparation for this, you know. So imagine he was in all these businesses, and all of it was about preparing him, bettering himself, being ready for what he was about to receive, you know, with the. And I love that. I think that's so cool. But he had to deal with a lot, I'm sure. Everybody's testimony is different. You know, what did he have to get past to see success? So do you want to figure out what's behind your procrastination? Do you want to figure out why you're not moving forward? The number one reason that people don't succeed in areas of their life always comes down to procrastination. Again, there's a lot behind that, but procrastination is the end result of all these things. So, you know, what do we do? Again, you're not an employee, guys. Nobody is going to ever tell you what to do. You've got your own business. You know, you've got to fight a little bit harder working for yourself, especially if you've never worked for yourself. There's all kinds of things, you know, from self-discipline to your schedule to everything. But, you know, nobody's going to tell you what to do. So if you're a procrastinator, you're just going to spiral down, never get there unless you deal with it. Nobody's going to be telling you what to do. And unless you ask, nobody's going to hold you accountable. It's pretty simple when you're in your own business. You're either making money or you're not making money. You're either succeeding or you're not succeeding. Nobody's going to hold you accountable. I would love it if everybody on my team makes money, because when they make money, I make money. But I cannot hold them accountable unless they ask me to. And so you can't hold them accountable. But, you know, we drop the ball and we never move forward because we just don't get to the root of the problem. You know, are you willing to get to the root of the problem? You know, are you willing to be able to put that work into you? You know, we can't succeed at anything. Again, self-sabotage can't lead to the success. Doesn't that sound ridiculous to think, well, I'm doing something that's actually sabotaging my own efforts, right? How am I going to be successful? It's got to be addressed. You know, if you never move forward, we can never reach the top. And I can tell you, maybe it's just my world, okay? Could very well be just my world. But most people I rub elbows with are not moving forward. There's something holding them back. And most of them, as we have personal conversations along these lines, they're not ready to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it. It's like there's something inside of them they just don't want to address, right? So, but if you never move forward, you're never going to reach the top. And I can assure you, if this kind of behavior, this procrastination, everything, you never get by with it working 9 to 5. You're going to be told what to do, when to do it, when you can take off, when to show up, when to leave, when to go on vacation, when you're going to get paid, and how much it's going to be. And it might be like stepping on toes and maybe a little too bold, but some people, I think they're more wired for that lifestyle. If you think you're not, or you're trying to break free and you really, really, really want this business to work for you, you want to work for yourself so you have freedom and you don't have money worries, if you really want these things, it's going to take a little work within you. Because again, nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to tell you when to show up and what to do. So you're going to be inclined to fall into fear, and you're definitely going to be inclined to procrastinate. So here are a few steps that I want to share with you, and then we can open it up and get some comments and everything. What do you do if you're a procrastinator, if you're not moving forward? What to do? Well, you do make a list. But you don't list everything you've got to do, because you see procrastinators got something going on, right? There's some reason they'll kick into self-sabotage mode, and they'll intentionally and habitually not do it. So they need to make a prioritized list. What are the things that absolutely need to get done today or this week or whatever, and prioritize that list. And I'm going to tell you, give you a big red flag here. The very things that you avoid the most are usually going to be the first things that are on that list. The biggest priority for business, the biggest things that you run from are usually the most important things. The key to success, the things you must do to succeed in our business are the very things you're putting off. They need to set deadlines to each one. So in other words, you make a list, you prioritize that list, and then you tell yourself when it needs to be done. There are some things that are pretty simple. When you do a follow-up, etc., you got to do it. You know when you're going to do it. You told them when you're going to do it. That kind of thing's pretty simple. But you need to set deadlines to each one, because see, what you're doing is you're holding you accountable. There's no room for procrastination. You give yourself a prioritized list and then set the deadline for when it's going to be done. And then break them down into manageable bites. Again, procrastinators, so often what's driving that whole train is fear, right? It's fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of what success, whatever it is. So if it looks too big, it becomes too overwhelming. And that's why I say when you make your list, don't you write a list a mile long. Believe me, it's overwhelming. You'll look at it and say, I don't want to do anything. But when you do the list and you prioritize it and you address those very things you avoid, then you need to just get it down to manageable bite-sized pieces. In other words, I want to set out and I want to prospect veterinarians, okay? And so the first thing would be identify the veterinarians, right? And so you need to give it in bite-sized pieces. You wouldn't just print out a list of 5 million veterinarians and say, oh my God, how am I going to ever call these people? You give it in bite-sized pieces and on that deadline schedule, right? And once you've seen even the tiniest bit of accomplishment, you know what? You get motivated to do more. And it's true in every area of life. If you go and paint a living room, or you do a project, or you plant a garden, it doesn't really matter. Once you see just even a little bit of accomplishment, it gives you the drive and the motivation to want to do more, because it feels good. You actually did what you said you were going to do, and it feels good. You need to avoid temptations. If you find yourself, for instance, you've got the prioritized list, and you got everything going on, you got little bite-sized pieces, but you're tempted to get online, check your email. Or somebody calls you and says, hey, let's go have a cup of coffee. And you're tempted to say, yeah, I'll just set this aside and go. You know what? That's a big trigger for you, because it's probably, when you're seeing temptation, it's probably the very thing you need to be working on, and you're self-sabotaging. You don't want to work on it. And so you so easily will find something to replace what you're supposed to do. So whenever you feel tempted, to get off track and to, get away from that prioritized list, just stop and say, why am I doing this? Why do I want to go on Facebook more than I want to make a living? Why am I doing this? So you avoid those temptations and definitely evaluate yourself when you're feeling them. And then reward yourself. You might say, hey, you know what, after I get, I make 10 phone calls and I set 3 meetings and I got all this stuff, I'm going to go get my nails done, or I'm going to go to a movie. Set rewards for yourself, because you don't see, it's not like every Friday you're getting a paycheck necessarily. You got to keep yourself going. Make yourself feel good. I accomplished something, and reward yourself. and focus on success and the joy that you're going to have. So in other words, as you're starting to really get a handle on this and you're determined to quit habitually and intentionally not doing things, focus on the success and the joy that you're going to have. That gets back to our vision, right? Without a vision, the people perish, and hope deferred makes the heart sick. So, stay focused on those things. How's it going to feel when I get this thing done? You focus on that, and it'll instill good feelings within you. And then, you know what? Give yourself consequences for what you said you'd do that you didn't do. So again, you're not going to have leaders holding you accountable. They're not going to say, hey, you're getting a lashing in the woodshed when you don't do what you said you're going to do. They have no, authority over you whatsoever in that way. So you need to give yourself consequences for not doing what you said you'd do. So in other words, you might say, well, you know what? I really want to go get my nails done, but I refuse to do it until I actually accomplish what I said I was going to do. You give yourself some consequences. It's got to be a little pain, a little skin in the game, right? And so you've got to not punish yourself, but give yourself some consequences for not doing what you said. And last but not least, and this is powerful, I think, and that's make your intentions known. So in other words, if you set out with your prioritized list, I assume you have your business goals in place. I assume you have your vision board. You've got a plan to move forward. Share that plan with somebody. Because I'm going to tell you, once you share that plan, you kind of put it out there. Well, I'm going to make 10 calls a day. I put my business plan out there for the year for a reason. I mean, I put it out there. I'm telling everybody what I'm doing. I got to do it, right? It puts a little pressure on you. Make your intentions known, because you're going to be more inclined to stay on track and to accomplish what you said if you've already put it out there. But if you're secretly in your closet and you're self-sabotaging, you might get around to doing something someday and you get ready to do something, you don't make your intentions known, you don't have a vision board, you don't talk about it. Guess where you're going, folks? You're not going where you're hoping to go. It's not possible. And so make your intentions known. So again, make a prioritized list. Stop avoiding the things that you want to avoid. Set deadlines for each one of your priorities. Then you break them down to manageable bites. Don't overwhelm yourself. Once you see an accomplishment, you get motivated. Avoid temptation, and that's a big red flag anytime you're trying to walk away from your work, right? Reward yourself. Focus on success. Visualize it so you can see it and taste it, right? Have consequences for yourself when you don't do what you set out to do, and make your intentions known. That's a beauty of working with a company like this. The people and the friendships and it's just unbelievable, really, what we have, before us with this company. So, you can make your intentions known to a friend in the business or to your sponsor or to, even sideline. It doesn't matter. Make your intentions known. But if you take these steps, you can make major changes in your life. You can start looking at procrastination. I would hope that that's going to be a trigger for you. Every time you realize I'm putting things off, put a label on it. It's procrastination. And every time you think about procrastination, I want you to think about, I wasn't born that way. It's learned behavior. It's intentionally and habitually putting off those things that need to be done. And I hope that's going to be kind of rubbing you the wrong way, that it'll strike a nerve with you, and that it will get you headed in a different direction. Procrastination is the #1 cause of not seeing the success in any area of life, in our business, in our relationships, with our children, with our faith, in any way. So that's the #1 reason that we don't succeed. So I'm going to open it up now. I'd like to get some comments, questions. Anybody want to chime in here? I chime in here. I've got you all muted out. But what I'll do is, as I see your hand raised, I will unmute you, and then you come on the call, and whatever you'd like to share, question you'd like to ask, or comments, I'm glad to hear from you. So anybody out there? I see Maggie McIntyre. The early bird catches the worm. Hold on a second, my friend. Okay, you're unmuted, Maggie.
Thank you, Lynn. Can you hear me okay? My headset's not working too well. I apologize for getting in here late. I didn't hear the announcements at the beginning, and I was wondering if you have a schedule for the business lunch that you had talked about doing.
Yes, I sent the schedule. In fact, that email went out a little bit earlier today. And so check your email for that, and you'll get details for that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And this was fantastic. I definitely know I fall victim to procrastination. Maybe it's not so much victim falling as much as avoidance.
Yeah, self-sabotage. Yeah. I would venture to guess that everybody on this call does. Thank you, Maggie. I want to mute you back out, my friend. Yeah, I think everybody does. It to one degree or another. Some people are chronic procrastinators, no doubt about it. And some of us just deal with, quote unquote, minor procrastination. But I can tell you, fear is going to make you not do a whole lot of stuff. And so with fear being a big problem with all of us, many of us or most of us, it's procrastination is going to follow that. Anybody else? Comments, questions, anything you have to say before we conclude the call? Love to hear from you. Now's your time. Just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. I see Elizabeth Bevan. Hold on one second, Elizabeth. You should be open mic. How you doing, girl?
Hey, Lynn, I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you, hon.
Hey, sorry for being late on the call. I really enjoyed the call. I got in about 10 minutes late, and I just wanted to chime in and say thank you and that I enjoyed it, and I look forward to getting together with you to set the stage.
Now, we got to do that. We can't procrastinate, right?
No, we can't do that.
Thank you so much for your input, and I didn't know that you guys are like going into class late. I don't notice who's coming. I'm too busy talking. To talk and walk and chew gum and look at the screen and do all that at the same time. So it's okay, but there will be a recording for this. Hopefully everything's functioning good tonight so you can get the first 10 minutes. And thank you so much, sweetie. We'll get together on our schedules, okay?
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let me go down here. Mute. One second. I saw another hand somewhere. Oh, Susan Foreman. Hold on one second, Susan. Okay, my friend, you're open mic. How you doing tonight? Susan. You might be muted out on your end, or maybe that was a mistake. Are you with us, Susan?
Just a minute. Are you okay? Can you hear me now?
There you are. Yes, we can. How you doing?
This is Jeannie Moore with Susan Foreman.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking, why Susan sounds a lot like Jeannie Moore.
No, we just got back from the cruise and we just got to our hotel room in time to hear your call.
Oh.
Perfect timing.
Oh,
perfect information. I know I sure needed it. You know my faults better than I do.
Well, I'm sure you guys had a great time. I'm so sorry I couldn't join you, and I can't wait to see the feedback and to talk to you individually, see how it went. And I guess, you learned a lot and got motivated, so this, hey, get off the stick and get moving is probably a good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Well, I love you. I can't wait to talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Anybody else? Raise your hand. I love this. I love to hear from the people on the call. Anybody else before we conclude the call? Any questions, comments? Just want to say hello. Now's the time to do it. And Terry, I see your hand up. There he goes. You should be unmuted now, Terry. You with me?
Yes, I am, Lynn. First of all, great session tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. It's something we all need to hear about.
Oh, my. You're starting with me. You all know that when I bring forth a message, it's really starting with me, okay? So if you want to know my weak spots, just listen to what I preach about, right? Thank you very much. Was that it, Terry?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, have a good night. I'm muting you back out. Anybody else here before we conclude the call? Oh, I see Jim Gillands. Yay. Hold on one second, Jim. Okay, my friend, you're open mic, Jim.
Okay, I just want to tell you it's a great call today, and that's one of the biggest things people deal with, procrastination. I know that I had that at the beginning, and it's something you have to constantly be monitoring. So yeah, great call. Look forward to hearing more.
Oh, thank you so much, Jim, and we're just honored that you join us on this call. Thank you so much for tuning in, and boy, you're not alone. I mean, I think this is a problem for all of us, and I don't think we can talk about it enough. And again, the things that come, that trigger this, the fear factors and all those things. But there's not one of us, guys, if you're wondering about where you are and if this struck home and you don't think everybody deals with this, okay? Everybody puts off those things that are not easy to do. It's just human nature. But some of us, again, it's just so convicting when you think about that we're not seeing the success we want to see because we're sabotaging our own success. That's a very scary thought. And again, I hope that trigger, when you think about procrastination, that it'll just ring a bell and you'll think, oh my goodness, I am deliberately and intentionally not doing those things that I need to do to be successful, to have a fulfilling life, to have good relationships, to have wonderful, well-rounded children, and to be the person of God that I was intended to be. So it's very convicting. It looks like that's it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I hope we have a good recording that I can share with you and out to the world. God bless you all. I'll see you guys next week, and make it a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.